Hey guys, welcome to Solar ReacTalk. If you're watching this, that means you've watched my first video of the Terran Institute, Stellaris Invicta, Greater Terran Union, the American Commissariat. Now I'm going to be focusing on the European Commissariat. If you haven't watched the American Commissariat, I'll put the card right up here, along with a playlist of all the reactions I've made for the Greater Terran Union. Okay guys, let's start. Okay, European Commissariat. 3, 2, 1.
In the woodlands of northern Europe, there lies a disk composed of countless concrete slabs, the largest memorial of its kind in the galaxy. On its surface has been inlaid the names of every Terran who perished in the First Contact War and the years of struggle that followed. Before the arrival of the Tyram, this site was known as Berlin, until on February 17, 2090, a flash of light erased the city from existence, sparking the beginning of a terrible slaughter of mankind and the birth of the Greater Terran Union. Today, that nation spans the whole of Earth and countless other planets, but it was born in that instant, in what was once called the Old World, and what is now known as the European Commissariat. While Europe would be the first to suffer the orbital strikes of the Tyram, it proved remarkably resistant. For nearly 60 years, much of the continent had been united under the sovereignty of the European Federation, and the continent's evolution from a fragmented collection of nation-states.
What happened to the European Union? Now it's the European Federation. Okay.
To integrated superpower was uniquely suited to survive external invasion. The European Federation suffered from the same cataclysmic damage to its civilian government that affected other nations, but its armed forces remained decentralized and impossible to cripple in a single decapitating strike. Still largely divided between various regional commands, whose authority was aligned to the territories of its former member nations, the Eurocorps had a disproportionate number of command and control centers. While criticized as top-heavy prior to the war, this level of redundancy allowed European forces to remain organized even as the Tyram landed ground forces and losses escalated exponentially. The fall of German, Belgium, and Czech states in the first few years of the conflict threatened to split the Federation in two and effectively erase the nation's remaining federal civilian leadership. With communications increasingly difficult to maintain and a vast coordinated counteroffensive impossible, military authority was further decentralized. Federation military doctrine had always emphasized freedom of action, and the scattered remnants of the European armed forces transformed themselves into a loose coalition of battle groups, all capable of acting independently and without support if necessary. The size and disposition of remaining Eurocorps forces varied wildly. In some cases, they were little more than scattered battalions garrisoning small villages and towns, ensuring lines of communication were kept open for as long as possible. In others, entire army groups took control of enormous territories, integrating themselves into local governments and creating emergency military administrations. Echoing the description once given to Prussia, the European coalition was not so much a state with an army, but an army with a state, scattered and disorganized though they might be. These efforts...
Yeah, no, that sounds like a good idea. Instead of centralizing everything into a very big target for the Tyram to see and to fire upon, the European Federation had a decentralized, very decentralized military apparatus, and the Tyram couldn't really tell or see where are the significant forces because they mingled into the civilian structure of the society in the European Federation. And yeah, that's actually worked out well for them, I think, because in the American Commonwealth, yes, I think that's what it was called. They had a lot of these military complexes and bases that were just easy, plain sight targets for the Tyrant just to bomb and decimate into oblivion. So yeah, very good for them.
Were not always successful. The fragmentation of the European military created overlapping areas of assumed responsibility and confusion at times as to who was in overall command. In the worldwide effort against the Tyrant, however, this was hardly unique, and more than any other theater of war, the Eurocorps coalition proved most capable of leveraging regional infrastructure, mobilizing available resources, and maintaining a continuity of regional governments. Faced with an increasingly deteriorating situation, the Eurocorps had no choice but to adapt on the fly. Impromptu battle groups were created, merged, split, and lost at a rapid rate, and many commanders had no orders other than to follow their own judgment. But as makeshift solutions began to reverse the collapse of worldwide communications, it was discovered that the Eurocorps' strategy had been unusually effective. Entire areas of the continent cut off by the Tyrant and assumed to have fallen had not only survived, but in some cases had been transformed into highly organized enclaves of resistance. The improvised command structure of the European coalition made the integration of foreign elements easier than it otherwise might have been. Surviving battle groups from the Middle East, Eurasia, Africa, and even the North American Commonwealth, once located, were quickly subsumed into the growing coalition command structure. In place of a rigid hierarchy, a loose council of high-ranking officers, first solely from within the Federation, but increasingly from foreign nations as the war progressed, created broad objectives and directed strategy. The legendary Franco-German counterattack along the Western European front, the unexpected arrival of the Polish Armored Division during the Siege of Dresden, and the joint Italian-Spanish landing in Algiers cemented the European coalition as the most effective military force on the planet. As Europe was liberated, its increasingly organized forces were deployed to ever-distant battlefields, even assisting in the Battle of New England in the final months of the war. Now a firmly international coalition, the transformed Eurocorps became a key partner and power broker worldwide. As various post-war factions competed for dominance in North America, Africa, and Asia, coalition support was often a deciding factor. Much of the world followed the European model, bringing to the coalition increased legitimacy, recognition, and support. By the time the coalition was formally recognized as the world's single provisional government, the influence of the old Eurocorps had been dramatically reduced as American, Eurasian, Pan-Pacific, and Asian commands were integrated. Even so, the lineage of the Eurocorps could still be felt, and it was a point of pride that the remnants of the European Federation were the first to cede formally their sovereignty to the coalition, and would thereafter ratify the Greater Terran Union in Europe with a sizable majority. The division of old Federation territory.
Yeah, I like this. They are garnering their institutional knowledge and their experience in being the European Union to the European Federation and giving it to the coalition. You know, that experience of teamwork, unity, having one vision, one purpose, having an identity that is beyond their national borders. And I like that. I like the fact that they did that. I like the fact that there was least resistance when it came to seceding power to this coalition from the European Federation and its member states. Unlike what was happening in America and probably other commissariats now that I'm hearing about this, probably there were also some altercations across the world that the coalition had to negotiate and had to also sometimes use military force to quell and to absorb these desperate power players across the world. So I like this, that, you know, there were some tough situations, but they were also ultimately led to a success for the coalition, which ultimately became the Greater Terran Union. So yeah, I like it.
Tories across newly established Union commissariats was unpopular, but accepted by most as the natural conclusion to European imperialism. The erasure of European sovereignty was also resisted, but often portrayed in state media at the time as a fitting evolution of the European Federation. In a controversial address amidst Reconstruction, Marshal Cosma Orlik declared that, as much as Europe has joined the world has joined Europe. While criticized as Eurocentric and divisive at a time emphasizing global unity, it cannot be discounted entirely. Both the European Commissariat and the Greater Terran Union are similar in many ways to the European Federation, with the latter being closely studied during the integration period. The government of the European Commissariat is largely identical to that of other terrestrial commissariats, with slight deviations in procedure and custom according to local traditions. Its three branches of government are likewise modeled on that of the Greater Terran Union. Federal authority is held by the Office of the High Commissar, while legislative and judicial power is administered by the Council of Europe and the High Court of Europe, respectively. Its capital is located in the city of Strasbourg, but with major offices and ministries spread across the whole of the commissariat. Rather than directly competing with larger commissariats, the European economy is highly diversified, with a slight emphasis in the advanced tech sector and automated systems. Luxury products from Europe are highly prized, especially in the frontier systems of the Union, as much for their quality as the history associated with it. European shipbuilding, while incapable of the same scale of production as the Eurasian or Pan-Pacific commissariats, has produced several prototypes eventually adopted into widespread service. The European Commissariat maintains no independent defense forces, but instead operates numerous paramilitary organizations and a single ceremonial division which garrisons government buildings and sites of historic significance. This unit is known by the Eurocorps honorific and is composed entirely of Land Force Command veterans who have completed an infamously grueling application process. The division has been deployed only once in its history, when human supremacists converged on the Marcel Godin spaceport in an attempt to block and harass some of the first Florian refugees to arrive on Earth. Footage of a Eurocorps soldier knocking out a human supremacist who attempted to grab a Florian child earned the unit widespread recognition and popularity across the whole of the Union. While the remarks of the unit's commander, future High Marshal Erich Koenig, became a rallying call of the Pan-Terran movement, saying, "The GTU has no patience for this bullshit." The Eurocorps is the most visible reminder of the European Federation, but its legacy and the legacy of...
Oh my god! Oh, I like that. I like that. The GTU has no time for this bull. Oh gosh. That is funny. That is funny. That is so funny. Just imagine on live TV. You just see the commanding officer beating the crap out of this terrorist, this human supremacist terrorist, and telling him, "Hey, we don't have time for this. The GTU does not have time for this stuff, okay?" Oh, wow. I like that. I like that.
for every nation ever to raise their banners across the continent can still be felt. When the Tyram came to Earth on February 17, 2090, it had been nearly a lifetime since Europe had known a major war. None alive then could remember their cities reduced to rubble and their skies clogged by falling ash. But it was something the continent itself knew well, and something it had overcome, again and again and again. When Europe's army struck back against the Tyram, they charged against annihilation like the Knights of Charlemagne. When Europe's explorers joined the great effort to explore the stars, they did so with the confidence of Bartholomew Diaz and Samuel de Champlain. When Europe's descendants faced annihilation on distant worlds, they held steadfast like Roman legions. Today, when a citizen of the greater Terran Union, regardless of their species, tier, or creed, seeks inspiration, they can find uncounted acts of selflessness, uncounted acts of heroism, uncounted acts of justice, wisdom, creativity, and commitment within the history of the European Commissariat.
The Ministry of Public Enlightenment is proud to announce that to celebrate the upcoming anniversary of our Greater Terran Union, several new products have been made available to all citizens, regardless of tier. The state banners of Air, Fleet, and Land Force Command can now be found on the Templin Commissary, as well as a GTU-branded shower curtain, a stern reminder of your water ration limit. Use the offer code HIGHMARSHAL to get 15% off your purchase for the next 30 days. You'll find the links in the description.
Well, guys, that was the European Commissariat, and I guess the European Commissariat was the blueprint and foundation of the GTU. And yeah, I find it quite interesting how it was incorporated, or should I say the GTU was germinated from the European Federation into the coalition, and from the coalition into the GTU. That was quite interesting to find out how all of that happened, because in the prologue they didn't really go into depth about how the GTU was formed. We just knew that there was pockets of resistance that coalesced together, made a networking system with a unique logo which designated that they belonged to this faction, and from there on out they became this government that was beginning to have authority over majority of the world. So now that we understand how it originated and how it formed and how it grew into what it is today, that was also very interesting. Okay, now I also have to know, what happened to the other Commissariat videos, because it can't just be the United Americas Commissariat and the European Commissariat. Where are the other commissariats? I'm hoping I might find them on the Tippin Institute. I'll just have to look. But there's a lot of videos, so I'm not sure. Maybe they forgot to put them on the playlist. If you guys have the links to those other commissariats, can you please send them to me on my comments, so then I can check them out as well. And yeah, this was very interesting. I especially like the commanding officer who was going to become the future High Marshal. Yeah, future High Marshal. The way he punched a human supremacist. Like, the GTU does not entertain human supremacist movements, and I love that. I love that. Ever since episode 1 of the Greater Terran Union, when there was a human supremacist faction that wanted to have some sort of human dominance and whatnot, being completely xenophobic, they dealt with these people decisively in space and on Earth, and they're continuing to do that even on the many other commissariats that are said to be far more cosmopolitan and diplomatic, and you will find some human supremacist movements on those places too. And the Greater Terran Union forces came in there, strong-handed tactics. They crushed any notion of any dissension from the people, having new arrivals from space coming to live on Earth. I love that. I love that. So at least I know for one thing, right? I know one thing, that the GTU is consistent. They don't, they're not political. They're not like, I'm your friend, I'm not your friend, but I'm still your friend. They're very straightforward. We are a human-dominated space, yes, and we are a human-first mentality in our space, and
and how we project ourselves to the rest of the galaxy, but we also accept alien immigrants to live amongst us, and we will protect them with the same sort of rights that are offered to human beings. And if should anyone infringe on their rights, on their existence, the GTU will come to their assistance to put down the rule of law, to quash any notion of dissension of any type from any human. It doesn't matter. Even if you are human in the GTU, it doesn't matter. If you are against the GTU and its laws, then you are against all of us. And I love that. I love that. I love that a lot. Huh. Okay. Guys, that's it. Remember, part 6 will be next week, Thursday. So remember to tune in then. And I guess I'll see you next time. Remember to give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Also, click the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And yeah, bye-bye.